If a large-scale disaster struck tonight, devastating your neighborhood and your house was destroyed within seconds, would your family have what it needs to survive the next 72 hours and beyond? In a disaster, the difference between panic and protection comes down to 5 core essential things that every bug-out bag should have. It's called the 5 C's of survival. Without them, you risk exposure, dehydration, or worse before help can arrive. The 5 C's are simple. It starts with cover from the elements, then having cordage, and then having a cutting tool to assist with cutting the cordage and making your shelter a way to make fire or combustion. And then the 5th C of survival is clean water, or a container, a way to procure clean water that you can drink, cook with. When you have all 5 of these things, you have a fighting chance to survive the 72 hours and beyond while you're waiting for help to come, or to even be able to extend a helping hand to your neighbors who might not have those things they need to survive. I'm gonna break it down for you and show you some things in each of those categories that you should have in your Evac-Pack so that your family can survive no matter what. The first category is cover, or shelter from the elements. A way to protect you and your family from being exposed to cold temperatures, to rain, to snow. Your body's core temperature can only drop about 3 degrees before you start to succumb to hypothermia. That can happen if you're exposed to the weather overnight and the temperature drops 10, 20, 30 degrees and you don't have a way to protect yourself. So a couple of simple things, very small, easy. You could have just one of these emergency tents. This is just a tube tent. It's got the Mylar. It's kind of like the Mylar blankets. If you had to huddle into something like this just to stay warm for the night, you could do it. It might not be comfortable, but you could definitely get through the night. And then you could go up to something even just like a tarp or an additional rain fly that came from an old tent. And I've got some rope tied around it that I could stretch out and have a place for us to get underneath it to stay out of the rain. Here I've got a waterproof blanket. It's big enough that we could wrap it around us. We could stay warm. It would also help keep us protected from the elements. Even something as simple as a tarp, just having a tarp and the ability to throw a couple of sticks up, make an A-frame tent, having a tent that's easily accessible that you could maybe have stored somewhere not inside your house, or it's easy to grab and throw it in your car if you had to leave your house, or if you had to just evacuate to your front yard because your house was no longer safe to be in, like in an earthquake or something along those lines. Having a way to cover yourself and protect yourself from the elements is essential to being able to survive after disaster strikes. The next category I mentioned was having cordage, or rope or string or twine to help you make a shelter. If you have to make a hasty shelter, a makeshift tent, it could come in handy if you've got to keep each other together, whether it's a dark environment, smoky, maybe there's a flood. Having the ability to tie off to each other so you don't get separated, that's huge. The biggest thing about this in the 5 C's of survival is having cordage. This is a difficult thing to make if you don't already have it. It's very easy because some of this doesn't take up any space at all. This could literally mean the difference between life and death if it helps you to set up a shelter to protect your family from exposure to the elements. In addition to having cordage, I've got some big heavy-duty nails, or you could use tent pegs. You could even include some tarp clips like this. All of those things are designed to help you establish and build that shelter to help protect your family. Also to help keep it stable. Say the wind's blowing really hard or it's a bad storm. You want to make sure that it's going to stay secure so that you're able to persevere and get through the disaster while you're waiting for help to arrive. Some of the different things I have, a single strand paracord. This one happens to be reflective. It doesn't hold a whole lot of weight, maybe about 75, 80 pounds, but that's not the intent. The intent is to secure your shelter to the ground, to a tree, things like that. This one also happens to have some reflective to it. I really like that because if you need to mark something, if it's hard to see in the dark, hard to find your way back to a tent, say you're headed off to try and find help or get supplies, this can help you find it in the dark. This is some nylon rope that I had, and I was helping my kids, teaching them how to make some survival shelters using a shower curtain. I'll put a link to the video right below so you can see a neat way to make a fully enclosed shelter with a rectangular tarp, shower curtain, or anything of that nature. This here just happens to be some plain jute twine. It's got pretty good strength. It would definitely work to hold a shelter together. It could also be used for a myriad of other things as well. I typically carry 550 cord. That's kind of my go-to because it's very versatile. Pull out the inner strands from the outer sheath, use the outer sheath for different things, and then use those inner strands for different things if you need more cordage. So I really like 550 cord. This happens to be 1100 paracord. So 550 means It's designed to withstand 550 pounds of load. 1100 paracord is designed to hold a much heavier load at 1100. It also has more strands in it. It is heavier. It does take up a little bit more space. Looking at single strand paracord to 14 strand paracord, which is the 1100 pound paracord, there's obviously a big difference in space and weight. So if those things are a factor, you got to take that into consideration. The next category I'm going to talk about is having a cutting tool or a cutting device. That's what this category represents. Having a knife, a saw, or a multi-tool, anything you can use to make your shelter. When you've got to cut that twine, it's pretty hard to do with your teeth. It's way easier if you've got a tool like a knife that you can use. There's a number of different knives you can throw in your pack. It doesn't have to be any one in particular. It's just got to be one that you have. It could be something as simple as an old pocket knife, as long as it's got a sharp edge. I've got an example of the folding razor knife. Essentially, if that blade were to get dull, you could flip it around and have another sharp edge. It's also easy to carry razor blades because they're small. Maybe you're like me and you prefer to carry a multi-tool. This is a nice multi-tool right here. Obviously, having pliers can be very beneficial in a myriad of situations. I like the fact that this one has a knife blade. For me, every multi-tool needs to have a few basic things for it to fit my needs. The first is having a knife or a cutting blade, a saw, and then having a can opener, a pair of pliers. Those are my 4 non-negotiables when it comes to a multi-tool. If you're going to carry a cutting device, you can get them pretty much anywhere. You can get them at a hardware store, gas station, truck stops, even auto parts stores. This is simply just an old kitchen knife. If you've got something that's sharp, got a good blade, or holds a good edge, this will cut that twine just like any one of these other knives. Sometimes you might need a more robust knife like this one that's a little bit heavier, got a thicker blade, and it's got a full tang that goes all the way through the handle. The full tang blade that's really robust will actually help you out when we get into the next category of the 5 C's of survival. This is a Frisker's folding saw, and I like Friskers because they come with a lifetime warranty. That is huge to me when I'm talking about purchasing something for value and longevity. I know that if something happens to this, it breaks, I can get it replaced. They're not going to ask any questions, so I feel like my money is being well spent. This is a Mora knife. Craftline Basic. This is a great knife. It's very inexpensive. They run about $10. They come in different colors. They hold a really great sharp edge. I've gotten one for my wife and for each of my kids. If they were to lose it, it's not a huge loss versus a $100 or $200 knife. And it really does a great job getting the job done. If you're looking for multi-purpose for a cutting tool, this is kind of like an e-tool from the military, but this is a shovel. You can see it's got a saw blade on it. The handle has different survival tools. It's got a knife in there. It's got the ability to chop, kind of the same thing as if you were batoning with your large, robust knife. Again, the ability to cut if you were cutting with a saw, the ability to dig a hole, different things like that if you needed to pound stakes into the ground for your shelter, your tent. This is a great option, but as you can see, this is much larger and it takes up more space. It's a little bit heavier. If you were in a situation where you had to take your bag and move with it to get to safety, this might not be the greatest option because it is heavier, but it's very flexible, very versatile. You got to weigh the different options and see what's going to work best for you. But the important thing is that you have a cutting tool. If you had a knife and a saw, or a multi-tool that had all of them, that's going to be your best bang for the buck. In the end, if this is all you had, this is going to be able to cut things and help you build that shelter and get your family protected from the elements. One thing I forgot to mention with a cutting device is having the ability to keep it sharp. I love something that's small like this. I can just throw it in the pack. That way, if I am using it to chop wood, I can quickly get a good sharp edge on it. And that's going to help keep me safe because a dull knife is much more dangerous. Now, before we get on to the next one of combustion, if you like this content, please like and subscribe. If you're new to preparing, new to bug out bags and evac packs, I've got a checklist that I created that's free for you. It's downloadable in the form that you can print it off and have a hard copy of it. It tells you exactly what you need to be putting into your evac pack to help your family stay prepared in the event of a disaster or emergency. So combustion really stands for having the way to make a fire. The easiest, fastest go-to is a simple Bic lighter. As you can see here, I've put duct tape around my Bic lighter. It doesn't make any difference in the weight. It still fits in my pocket or my bag just fine. That duct tape can be a great fire extender. If you roll it up and light it, it'll keep your fire going much longer. If you're having a hard time getting wet wood started on a fire, that duct tape will help tremendously. It's also good for repairs and bandages in a pinch. I don't know if you can see that. Whew. that's hot. Just having a little torch lighter, those work really well. And then of course you have the standard matches just like this. Even just having simple matches in your bag is a great way to do it. I would say having a candle or something like that, or even some of these already pre-formed fire starters that have a little bit of fuel or wax to help you get a fire going. And then here I've just made a homemade little fire starter. Just taking an egg carton, you just take some wax, some old candles and stuff that you have, mix a little bit of sawdust or some chunks into it, and go ahead and mix that up, and then you pour it and dip this into the wax. It actually makes a waterproof fire starter. This could get completely submerged in water. I can take it out and light it, and it will help get a fire going. This will burn for several minutes. Another thing you could add is some simple hand sanitizer that's an alcohol base. If you're trying to get a fire going, you can spray the wood or your tinder with this alcohol. It's also a good hand sanitizer if you had an injury, keeping yourself from getting an infection. In a pinch, this will help you start a fire. I'll show you here first. This is a ferro rod. This throws sparks to start a fire. This is a magnesium fire starter. Scrape off some of this magnesium shavings, just like this. Get it into a pile. And that magnesium, when you strike it, the striker will light and it'll burn really hot, and it helps get a fire going. I love to look for values and things that are on a clearance or a discount. I happened to pick this up at Walmart. It was only $3. It's a little folding stove that's got some fuel tabs in it. If I needed to put a pot or something on there, I could do that. And then this is another good example. About $10 for this little canister stove. This would hook up to a canister of fuel, sit right on top of the fuel, light it, and you've got a way to keep a fire going that you're not having to use sticks or things like that. Great way to be able to put a pot on it. We'll talk about that in a minute. You got to have a way to not only start a fire, but keep a fire going. Those are just some simple things that you can throw in. None of these take up much space. Very simple to keep in your pack. Lightweight, and when you need them, could mean the difference between life and death for you and your family. If you're trying to stay warm, procure water, and shelter through the night, this last category in the 5 C's of survival stands for a container or clean water. Having the ability to both carry water, but also procure clean, potable drinking water, that is huge. If you don't have that, you're not going to make it very long. One of the biggest things that happens in a disaster is water supply is cut off. If power goes out, the pumps aren't running. If there was a flood and the water's contaminated and you're under a boil alert, or if the whole water system simply shuts down, any number of reasons why you need to have a way to not only carry water, but also have a way to make it safe to drink. One of the most basic ways is to simply be able to boil water. This is just simply a cook pot from my kitchen. If you had an extra one, something small like this, you could throw it in your bag or in your tote. You can see I've got some totes behind me here. You could easily put something like this or an old tea kettle in there, a way to put it on a fire and boil water. That's the most basic way to sanitize water to make it potable to drink. And obviously, you got to have a way to be able to keep that fire going long enough to boil it. This is a standalone all-in-one kit that's got a cup you can boil in it. It's got the stove, and then I have a can of sterno fuel in there as well. I showed you some other options earlier of a way to have a little camp stove. You could even have a campfire if you needed to. But if you're in an urban environment, having something like this or that little gas canister stove is really going to be critical, because you're not going to be out gathering sticks. You're not going to be setting a fire in your yard. Having a contained way to make potable drinking water for your family is going to be critical. If you happen to be using a water bottle, I prefer the single wall stainless steel water bottle, because not only can you carry water in it, but you can also put this directly on the fire and boil it. You don't want to have the insulated water bottles, because as you start to heat it up, it'll have pressure in it. That thing could explode. So it's got to be a single wall stainless steel water bottle to be able to boil water in. This here is also a single wall stainless steel water bottle, but what's nice about this one is it comes with its own little nesting cup. As you can see, I've used this quite a bit. It's got a graduated measuring scale inside of the cup, so I can see if I'm using different methods to purify my water or sterilize it. If I'm using bleach, that's going to tell me how much water I have, and that'll help me gauge how much of those things I need to use. There are other uses for this, but we're just talking about water and having a way to carry, contain, and procure safe drinking water. Now, perhaps you're not going to be boiling water and you're relying on getting clean water. One of the things I would recommend, this is called a Silcock key. I've got 2 of them there. They're just taped together so I don't lose them. Having the ability to turn on those valves that a lot of times is used for landscaping, gardeners, at schools, warehouses, large buildings, at grocery stores. You can turn on that faucet with one of these keys and fill up your water bottles and containers. Here I've got an Nalgene water bottle. That works great. Or even just a standard military canteen. tenting, but you've got to have a way to carry that water from that point back to your family. Or if you're moving, to be able to take it with you. Another basic thing you could have would be a life straw. This has a really wide mouth on this bottle. You could take the water, scoop it up out of a stream or a pond. It's not necessarily potable, but you can take it with you and then use the life straw by sticking it down inside, being able to drink it on the go. If you had a few of these bottles for your family, you wouldn't have to worry about boiling it. It doesn't take any time at all. You can simply grab it and go. Another option is having water purification tablets. These have instructions, but basically if you were to use a 1 quart bottle, it's going to tell you how many tablets to put in a 1 quart bottle so that you can sterilize that and how long you have to wait to be able to drink it. That's going to kill any bacteria or anything growing in there that might make you sick. This one I really like a lot. I've used it myself several times. It's a Sawyer squeeze system. They've got a new one out that's a Sawyer mini. I'm planning on getting one of those and trying it out because it's about half the size of this. If space or weight is a consideration, which I'm going to soon be doing a challenge that's going to involve going about 35 miles with a pack and having to sustain myself for 3 days. For me, space and weight is a really big thing for attempting to do something like that. This is another great option. It allows you to fill up this bag with water. This is your contaminated water, and then you would simply squeeze it out through this filter into your water bottles, and now this water bottle has good, clean drinking water. Remember, you don't want to put contaminated water in here one moment and then turn around and put clean water in it because you're going to have contaminated water all over again. You want to make sure that you clearly identify which container is your dirty water or your contaminated water and which is your clean, and don't mix them up. 2 other great options that I really like. If you've got a family like me and you've got multiple people, you've got multiple water bottles you're going to have to fill up, you're going to maybe have to cook food, a gravity filter system. This is by Membrane Solutions. You scoop water, hang it up on a tree, and gravity's going to do all the work filtering it. You don't have to squeeze it, you don't have to suck on it, and you simply fill up your water bottle. This is a 6-liter bag, so it's a pretty good size. But if you've got a large family, this is a 10-liter Base Camp Pro. I've got 3 kids at home, my wife and I, we're going to go through a lot of water. So if you have to go any distance at all to a water source and then come back, this is a great option. And then when it comes to carrying water, I love these collapsible water bottles because they don't take up any space, but you have the ability to now carry water without having to carry all these containers. If we've got a water filter system, that's not necessary. And then a Camelback or a water bladder. This has a straw. This goes inside of your backpack or in your side of your Evac-Pack and gives you the ability to drink on the move. So if you're having to leave the area because it's no longer safe, this gives you the ability to hands-free, keep going, doing what you're doing, simply reach down, grab the straw, take a drink, and keep going. It also gives you the ability that each person can carry the water they need. This is a 2-liter bladder here, so this would be great for my kids. If you had something like this Base Camp Pro and the ability to fill several of these, that's a great way to sustain yourself and your family in the event of a disaster. Don't be scared. Be prepared. Stay safe. Until next time, American Thrivalist out.